ever wondered exactly how a woman ends up with a shut up ring or a ring I'd like to call here, dang? This is exactly how it happens.
128. 128. That's all it takes.
I don't know all it takes.
And what's your excuse?
I haven't found anyone to marry.
128. Then they're cute. They're cute.
The idea that you're begging and pleading, taking this man to the ring case of a department store, showing him how cheap, how low you'll go. $128. You keep saying how little you're okay with settling with. It's not about the cost of the ring. He told you out of his mouth, I haven't found anyone that I want to marry. Then what are y'all still doing there if marriage is what you want? Like when a man tells you who he is, believe him the first time. He's already made it clear he doesn't want to marry you. So either you're going to stay with him and be unmarried, or you're going to let him go and find a man that will. This is how we break our own hearts. This is how we waste our own time. And that's thinking that we can change a man's mind. The last thing you want is a man that married you out of a sense of obligation. Married you because you guilt tripped him or manipulated him or threatened him. You want a man to marry you because he loves you and he cannot see his life without you. He doesn't care how cheap the ring is. He already told you, I don't care if the ring is free. I said I'm not ready to marry you. Now, after hearing what he said, do you believe him now?
It's wild. It's like, ladies, are you delusional? Do you just try to be dumb? This pick Misha is wild. He literally said that to her face and she just pretended like she didn't hear it. And it almost makes me, when y'all behave in this way, I'll tell you what it does. It almost makes me sympathize with the male species. It's wild because it's like, think like, if you were in their place and you had to fake it till you make it, and you have to put up with this caliber of women or this species that you don't even like, and you tell them that you don't even like them, and they just act and pretend like you never said that, right? As a male, that would only make my dislike and hate for whoever that person is and that gender grow. Because it's like, how can you be so delusional? He literally just said it to your face, like, be so for real. Get real, y'all.
Looking for a man in coffin, dead now, passed on, face down, the ground. His bank, his cash, mine now.
That's perfect. That's exactly, yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself as to what more and more of us women are looking for. It's perfect. Let's hear the description one more time for all the males in the back that did not hear what it is that more and more of us women are looking for. All right?
I'm looking for a man in coffin, dead now, passed on, face down, the ground. His bank, his cash, mine now.
Period. Leave it in the comments below what your thoughts are on this particular issue. Here on this channel, we discuss different topics, anything pertaining and related to women on a regular basis. So leave it in the comments below. Smash that subscribe button if that's your vibe, okay? And don't forget to smash that like button as well. And so also, because we will be discussing, religion in this video as well, fair warning on that. If you are sensitive, if you are on the emotional side, this might not be one for you, right? So there goes the warning on that, okay?
But the Muslim, because I actually reach out to Muslim because we love people. They deny this. They say, women get a lot of rights, and many Western women even become Muslims.
They don't want to admit that there's a lot of wrong things in Islam. But if you read the real Sunnah, and if you open the Quran, the real Quran, you're gonna see all of this written there. It's like it's Islam. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna say what I believe in. The people who apply Islam, like the real Islam, it's ISIS. These crazy people are applying it, like
because Muhammad, he had sex slaves. He promoted.
Like 11 ones.
Yeah, And also it says in the Quran that, I think it's a Quran that, you can possess sex slaves in your right hand. So you can have unlimited sex slaves. And some Muslim scholars, they don't even deny this.
Yes.
Some,
Because they don't want to admit the bad things in the religion. That's what I think. They don't want to admit that their religion is completely crazy, honestly. I was Muslim since 18 years of my life. Since I born, I'm Muslim. And I lived Islam once I got an adult. I lived there because I don't have any religious or I'm agnostic because I was before Muslim. Yeah, I've been Muslim for a long time. But the thing that made me leave my religion is that there is a lot of humiliating principles in Islam. As a woman, I can't believe in these things. Honestly, I'm not trying to be racist or Islamophobe, actually, but yeah, I'm just saying no one is in his fully mental health would believe in that. Because this is insulting for humanity, honestly. In Quran, in Sunnah, they saying that it's okay to beat women. It's okay to take her freedom and all these things. This is what I believe. This is what I believe. Actually, that's why I don't believe.
Okay, y'all. So let's take a look at what we have here. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the Islam religion. Is it all that it's cracked up to be? Is it all that the Islam recruiters try to make us believe that it is cracked up to be? Let's take a look. Let's see what we can find. I'll insert something here also, just so y'all keep this in mind. When it comes to race and when we have discussions that involve race, one thing that I've noticed is that everything is good and great as long as it's not your race that's being discussed. What's wrong with y'all? As long as, for example, as long as we're talking about Black people in the Black community, everyone is great. Right? No one says anything. If nothing else, they contribute to the beratement or the conversations in regards to, Black people. But as soon as I mention white people in any capacity, you see the white people and the white women particularly flooding the comments. Well, not flooding, that's an exaggeration, but they start popping up in the comments. Well, why is this a race issue? Well, why are we now focusing on race? You must have just joined my channel because I think 90% of males and the 90th percentile of males are trash regardless of their race. And most of the males that hit on me, y'all, are white. So you already know that. I mean, how can you be comfortable talking about other races, but when yours comes up, all of a sudden there's a problem? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. In the last video that I did about incels, right? So if you haven't watched that video, make sure to catch up on that video after this one. But in the last video that I did about incels, the statistics showed that in the incels group, 40% of them are African American males. And so I was getting comments where I don't know if the white people forgot that there is a whole nother 60%. And it's so what race do you think makes up the other 60%? You know what I mean? It's y'all let's not get delusional. Okay. Just because we're highlighting one group and how bad it might be within that group when it comes to certain topics and issues does not let your group off the hook, especially when your group still makes up the majority of the community that we're talking about. I mean, you still make up 60% of it. So everyone just needs to relax and understand that, look, males suck, period. In the 90th percentile of them. And then I got another comment. She was like, why are you only talking about Black males? White males suck too. Just because I'm talking about Black males does not mean that I don't believe that white males suck too. Actually, like I said, in general, in the 90th percentile, males suck, period. And if you, as a woman, want to be with a male, my biggest suggestion is to be 4B, right? And take your time vetting. The older you are as a woman, the better caliber of male you'll be able to get, because you'll be vetting them based off of real life experience and what you actually want, not based off of the words that they're telling you and then falling for that and then complaining that you got lied to. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So just because I'm talking about one group does not mean you can assume what the feeling about other groups are, especially if you're new to the channel and you haven't watched the videos and you're not really, familiar. All right. So that's my little rant, a disclaimer on that. So let's take a look at what we have here.
Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, or what Prophet Muhammad did, are the reasons why people are leaving Islam. When you read the Quran, 95% or 90% of it is about hell, heaven, Allah is all-knowing, Allah is merciful, believers, non-believers, Allah is severe in punishment. How about your peace of mind? How about understanding yourself? How about connecting with God? How about understanding the universe? How about understanding the real meaning of life? How about love between people? Nada. Nothing.
Why people really leave Islam? There's a lot of confusion as to just why people leave religious groups, and especially what leads ex-Muslims out of the faith. It's not, for example, abusive parents or cultural alienation or even hating God. So what are the main reasons people leave Islam? Conflicts between Islam and science. Yes, it's that simple. Unsurprisingly, religious incompatibility with observable reality and the scientific method is a common beeline into questioning and eventually leaving faith.
And the more I learned of science, just basic high school science, nothing spectacular, and learning about evolution, learning about physics, learning about chemistry, that made sense to me, and religion didn't. So much of it was just like believe in it because we said you should believe in it, and it says in the book that it's right because the book says it's right.
This is even less surprising when we consider that ex-Muslims were about 3 times more likely than the general population to have a STEM degree in XMNA's apostate report. Of the respondents in the apostate report, 28% reported conflict between Islam and the scientific view of the natural world as the most important factor in their apostasy, while for 65% it was a contributing factor.
So if one aspect of this self-proclaimed perfect religion is flawed, then what does it say about everything else?
Logical and scriptural contradictions. People who leave Islam aren't the ones who know the least about it. In fact, it's often the most inquisitive about the religion who do so, sometimes after very deliberate study.
So I remember thinking about, where did God come from? If you don't need anything for God to exist, then why do we need God for the universe to exist? And I remember asking Mom that, and she said, thinking about stuff like that is fitna, because it gives a chance for the shaitan, for the devil to kind of
Play with your head.
Yeah, play with your head. And
in XMNA's apostate report, respondents were asked about their reasons for leaving the faith. When asked about the logical problems with Islamic doctrines and teachings, nearly 1 in 5 called these concerns the most important factor in their apostasy, and just over 2/3 called them a contributing factor.
It took me a long time to finally accept my apostasy around 14, 15, and I started really questioning the metaphysics of all of it. And it really didn't make any sense.
Before they make the difficult choice to leave, ex-Muslims first double down into more rigorous theological study, more often than not, in search of something they might have missed.
I decided, I'm going to be more religious. I'm going to read the Quran from start to finish, and this time I'm going to read it and I'm going to look really deeply in it.
Perhaps they think the flaws lie not in the texts, but in their incomplete understanding. But the more they read, the less sense things seem to make.
told me all the historical inaccuracies. And that really sort of, you question certain things and, so you sort of explain it by saying, oh, it's a text written at that time, this, that, but no one ever, asked me those kind of questions that made me realize that when it's inaccurate. It's just wrong. This is not when this happened. So then I thought, that whole idea of it being untouchable, the Quran, right? That sort of shattered. And after that, I was just like, no going back. Really, you can't just sort of believe again.
3/4 of respondents in the Apostate report shared that it was realizing internal contradictions in Islamic scripture that factored most heavily into their decision to leave. Those who know Islam the most are those most convinced of its falsehood. Conflict between Islam and human rights. To be clear, being a religious person and supporting human rights are not mutually exclusive. There are moral, religious people, amoral atheists, and everything in between. But addendums aside, religion is all too often used as a justification for bigotry, prejudice, and discrimination.
The gender inequality was a weird thing because I had a lot of very strong female role models in my life.
And in order for you to go to heaven, I was taught that if I don't wear the hijab, then I will be held from my hair in hell.
And this is protected by godly decree, shielded from criticism under the pretext of religious freedom.
So people often ask me, why did you leave your own beliefs, your own religion, the religion of your parents? It's very simple. I'm a gay person, and I should get beheaded? What kind of religion calls this?
Religion is necessarily exclusive. If one set of beliefs is ultimately and unquestionably true, it often follows that those unlucky enough to have not been born into the in-group or foolish enough not to have converted are regarded with disdain at best and violent hatred at worst. As people who were part of and then willingly chose to leave this community, atheist ex-Muslims are prime among those Islamically treated as subhuman.
Your family is your family and they love and care about you, but it's all based on your adherence to religion.
In which case their deaths are not just called for, but celebrated. Islam makes all sorts of claims against non-Muslims, women, and LGBT individuals that are part of a reality in which individuals and governments alike use religious law and custom to strangle human rights and dignities. So it intuitively follows that, in fact, one of the common motivations of leaving the faith is a concern for the tension between unquestioning belief in an ancient biased text and real issues of human rights. Ex-Muslims report feeling increasingly uncomfortable with the claims taught to them as fact about women, non-Muslims, and other minorities. In XMNA's Apostate report, 35% of respondents cited conflict between Islam and human rights principles as the most important factor in their apostasy, more than any other factor. Almost 6 in 10 called this a contributing factor, and only 7% said it was not a factor.
I even had so many of you going back and forth on this topic in the comments section of some of the recent videos. So I know that we've been talking about certain religions, and Christianity being one of them, and we'll continue to do so. We will continue to talk about all these different aspects and themes when it comes to religion, because it is such an interesting topic. In this video, though, we're going to explore, the Islamic religion. What I'm interested in learning is it true? A lot of Islamic supporters, a lot of even women that are part of the Islamic culture or religion are trying to get even more people and even more women to follow that belief system. So here we're just going to take a look at what they're trying to get us to follow exactly, based off of factual information and not just what the recruiters are telling us, right? What the Islamic recruiters are telling us. We're going to go ahead and further explain this in a little bit more detail to take a look at what this is really, what this religion actually entails. Is it a religion that's run by women? Do women have the ultimate say-so in this religion, and that's how it differs from Christianity? Was it started with women? I'm trying to see what Islam's claim is so different from any other religions that we have out there, especially when it comes to the Christianity religion, right? So let's take a look here. Okay, so some of the comments that we have seen in the comments section, right? So why are 2 out of 3 of Western converts to Islam women? I don't think that those numbers are accurate. I don't think that 2 out of 3 of Western, and I can tell that this is obviously an Islam recruiter because of the English that we're seeing here. So, I've been getting a lot of these lately where it's like they're really, really trying hard to recruit. It's like, and the first thing it makes me think of is, Islam cannot reasonably and logically speaking be any different from Christianity if you have to work this hard to try to recruit people. It's like, it's giving me potentially cultish vibes, but I guess we'll see, right? Another comment underneath that as a response says probably because their Muslim boyfriends lie to them and they'll still be telling them that they'll still be free and have equal rights. That's what I've been seeing a lot, but as we'll find out, I don't know that that's not accurate. Women are maybe potentially even treated worse than I never thought I would see it. But the more I researched on this topic, the worse it became. And the more apparent it became that if you as a woman go from the Christianity into the Islam religion, you will probably have an even worse time. It's not going to be fun for you. Okay. But the good news is that 75% of converts to Islam will eventually leave. If you're not brainwashed from birth by it, leaving Islam is very easy. Yeah, exactly. Most people will, the thing is, most people don't engage in critical thinking. They don't ask questions. And most people want to be a part of a group really, really badly. It is embedded into the human social conditioning to want to be and feel a part of. So most people do not do the necessary processing and questioning that would be needed prior to joining any type of an extreme group or extreme cult or whatever the case may be, because they want to be a part of it so badly. And so, but if they are not joining it from birth, most of them will just end up leaving, because the idea is that those groups of people come into the religion looking for and believing will start to basically disappear right in front of their eyes, because no religion is really like that, right? So it's very interesting, kind of like the double-edged sword there. This one was very interesting to me. As a Muslim woman, I have spent years of my life studying a lot of religions, but the most liberating one for women is Islam. Why do you think the majority of Muslim reverts are women? Islam is the only religion that gives women so many rights that nobody knows about, because they get culture mixed up with religion instead of looking at the faith itself. In Islam, women have the right to, and then she lists education, career, inheritance, blah, 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 owning land, marriage of her choice. This is what Quran, I don't want to mispronounce these, and other scholars say. But compared to Christianity, I see verses that are like 1 Timothy 2. The first thing that I thought of when I saw this comment is, how much respect do you as a woman have to lack to allow these comments to come out of your mouth? Like, okay, here's the thing. It's not that it's a bad comment. It's just that the first thing I thought about, right, is, okay, but literally the issue that we're talking about is women are human beings. So any religion that says, oh, we allow you to, thinks that women should fundamentally have, because they are human beings. It's not something that we should be needing permission to get, right? That alone should be where you stop and say, well, wait a second, right? Why do we have to have permission to have an education? Why do we have to have permission to have a career? Why do we have to have permission to have our own money? Why do we have to join a religion, right, that is described as one of the most, if not, that is described as the most liberating one for Islam women? I want y'all to stop and use your brains, right? Like, it's this religion, she's describing it as the most liberating one for women. So you're acknowledging that if women join this group, they will be limited. But the only pro that they get is that, you know, in comparison to other religions, maybe they'll have more rights, but they will still be limited. So why would a woman join that? It doesn't make sense. Like, you could literally just not join any religion and be completely free, or at least as free as you could possibly be in the midst of a patriarchy. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's like women are so used to being controlled and used that they cannot even begin to engage in critical thinking. This says but the most liberating one for women is Islam. The most liberating one for women. Like, what do you mean? So you're telling me that your assessment is primarily only based off of in comparison to other religions, when we all know that a lot of other religions don't even have a starting point. They don't even have a bar. Like, it's like the standards are non-existent. They beat women, they assume women, which, come to find out, the Islam religion encourages as well. So it ends up, it ends up kind of being the same thing, right? So it's like, what are you trying to get us to buy? Like, it doesn't even make sense. So why would we as women, go from one restrictive religion to another restrictive religion just because one is a little bit less restrictive than the other? y'all, like, can you help me? Can you please help us understand this? I mean, I don't know. It's just that's just the first thing that came to my mind, y'all. That's just the first thing that came to my mind. Y'all, keep it in the comments section, because those comments will start being not allowed in the comments section if they are rude, if they are disrespectful, if you're using profanity, if you are just ill. I won't care what you're saying. We're just not going to include it in the comments section. It's like, if you can't communicate in a way that makes sense so we can understand what you're saying without being rude and overly emotionally triggered, then we're not going to be able to include it. So let's all be reasonable in these responses, right? So this says, I'm going to skip the first part because that's an overly emotional response here, which it's not that, it's just when you're responding to these things, you want to try your best to not be overly emotional. I understand that these topics can bring up a lot of emotions, but try a little bit harder. We can all fall prey to it sometimes, but y'all put in a little bit more effort. Okay. So this says, but she does, whoever this person is, she does make a good point, right? So in the explanation of it, Aisha was only 6 when Muhammad married her, 9 when he began having sex with her. Y'all, when I say that everything goes back to the women and just revolves around them having more women, all of these things are patriarchal constructs that basically just revolve around how many women can I get, how many women can I own, how many women can I subdue. Right? The Quran says that the majority of the inhabitants of Hell are women, and that women are created deficient. Women only inherit 50% of what a male gets. So if they're created deficient, why even give them 50%? You see how these religions end up not making any sense? They're so contradicting to themselves. They just say whatever it is that they feel like they need to say to give males more power because it's made for males, from males. And how can you know if the majority of inhabitants in Hell are women? Have you ever been there? So like you've been there, you've seen it? And even if you claim to have been there, how are you going to prove that to us? Like, I mean, none of this stuff makes sense, but y'all are so desperate to be a part of a group, you'll take anything and everything. The Quran starts off peaceful and gets more and more violent because over time, Muhammad was getting more and more violent, delusional, and mentally ill. I get what the point that this commenter is making, because if you study it, it doesn't even take much, y'all, honestly. It doesn't even take much to get to the more violent parts. If you just want to look it up and learn more about it, you just have to take some time to look it up and actually learn more about it. So it starts off all peaceful from what I've seen, and it does become more and more violent. I mean, at some point, I think they were having wars. I mean, it was like several wars and killing of people per year because they wanted to control people. And so there's just so many aspects to this piece that, you want to be careful to learn about before signing your life away.
Hello, peace be upon you. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Brother Ismail. I've been a Muslim for 16 years, but in the past few years, I have been bothered by some reoccurring issues which have forced me to question my Islamic faith. And recently, I have decided to finally leave Islam, and in this video, I will explain why. Now, I don't think it's fair for Muslims to consider me as some kind of traitor or sellout, because over the years, I've done my best to be faithful and loyal to Islam. I did not play games with Islam, and I took my Islamic faith very seriously. And whenever I found any Islamic teaching difficult, problematic, or controversial, I always did my best to research the issue for myself and for my fellow Muslims to resolve it. I certainly was not perfect, but I think very few people would question my sincerity to Allah, Muhammad, and to Islam. So I can assure you that I was committed to this religion called Islam. Now let me address the title of this video, the question, why I left Islam. The answer to this question is the Quran and Muhammad and their teachings on moral standards and conduct. You see, over the past few years, I have found that I am no longer able to defend the Quran and especially Muhammad's morals and conduct. In the past, I have done my best to defend Islam, and in particular to defend Muhammad from the claims and charges made against him. I tried my best to love Muhammad, and I can prove I stood up for him and defended him many times. For example, I produced videos like, Was Muhammad Merciful?, where I tried to provide examples of Muhammad's good character. And my video, Who Are the Islam Haters?, where I tried to refute and expose the anti-Islamic critics, and I made many more videos in which I defended Islam and Muhammad. Most of the time I was successful in defending Muhammad against those who were attacking his character, as I was well educated in Islam and I studied Islamic apologetics for years. However, while I was defending Islam, I had noticed many of the criticisms were actually valid and based on authentic early Islamic sources, and I found myself at a loss to find adequate, honest responses to them. In the coming videos, I shall share with you many of the allegations made against the Quran and Muhammad that I could no longer defend. But for the sake of brevity, in this video I will provide you with one example on the topic of sexual immorality. As shocking as it may seem, both the Quran and Muhammad teach that it's permissible, halal, to capture and rape female war captives, even if these women are married and their non-Muslim husbands are still alive. So let's investigate the Islamic sources to see what they say. The Quran in chapter 4, verses 22 and 23 informs Muslim men about the categories of women which they are forbidden to marry. But in ayah number 24, we read, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Also forbidden are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. So we see here in the Quran an exception, an example, where it is permissible, halal, for a Muslim man to marry a woman who already has a husband. But who are these women described as being owned or possessed by your right hand? For the answer, let us turn to the most famous commentator on the Quran, Ibn Kathir, who, while commenting on Quran chapter 4:24, said the following, quote, Allah said, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Also forbidden are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. The ayah means you are prohibited from marrying women who are already married. إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Except those whom your right hands possess, meaning except those whom you acquire through war, for you are allowed such women after making sure they are not pregnant. Imam Ahmad recorded that Abu Sa'id al-Khudri said, we captured some women from the area of Apostasy who were already married, and we disliked having sexual relations with them because they already had husbands. So we asked the Prophet about this matter, and this ayah was revealed. وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. Also forbidden are women already married, except those whom your right hands possess. Consequently, we had sexual relations with these women. This is the recording collected by At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, Ibn Jarir, and Muslim in his Sahih. Now at this point, maybe you're in a state of shock. Maybe you're even saying to yourself, this is impossible. The glorious Quran and the noble Prophet Muhammad would never teach such sexual immorality. Or maybe you're thinking there must be some other more positive interpretation to the Quran chapter 4 verse 24. Or maybe you're even trying to convince yourself that the great Islamic scholar and the most famous Quran commentator, Ibn Kathir, is completely wrong and he has no idea what he's talking about. Brothers and sisters, I wish all of that were true, but unfortunately, when we investigate the matter further, things just get worse. For example, we read in the following hadith, in Sunan Abi Dawood, volume 2, hadith number 2155, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri narrated, the Messenger of Allah, meaning Muhammad, sent a military expedition to Apostasy on the day of Hunayn, and they met their enemy, fought them, and defeated them. They took captives. فَكَأَنَّ أُنَاسًا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ تَحَرَّجُوا مِنْ غِشْيَانِهِنَّ مِنْ أَجْلِ أَزْوَاجِهِنَّ مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. But some of the companions of the Messenger of Allah were reluctant or felt uncomfortable to have relations, meaning sex, with them, meaning the female captives, because of their pagan husbands. فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فِي ذَلِكَ وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ. So Allah revealed the Quranic verse, and forbidden are women already married except those whom your right hands possess. And this is again Quran chapter 4 verse 24, as we said. أي فهن لهم حلال إذا أنقضت عدتهن, meaning they are lawful or allowed for them when they complete their waiting period. And this hadith, my brothers and sisters, is sahih, or authentic. So this hadith informs us that the Muslim soldiers had a problem. They wanted to have sex with the female captives, but these women were already married and they had husbands who were still living. So Muhammad then claims to receive a revelation from Allah that instructs the Muslim men to wait for a period of time to ensure that the female captives are not pregnant. And then after that period, these Muslim men are allowed to go and have sex with these married women. Now ask yourself this question. How would you feel if your wife or any woman in your family was captured by some enemy soldiers, then forced to divorce her husband, then forced to marry one of those enemy soldiers, then forced to have sex with that enemy soldier whom she obviously hated? And all of this happened while her husband was still alive. Do you think that your wife, your sister, your daughter, or your mother would agree to have these things forced upon her in humiliation? No sane person in his or her right mind could defend the Quran and Muhammad on this issue. This is nothing more than legalized rape of married women. And I cannot believe that this is from God. So therefore, I am rejecting the Quran and Muhammad on this issue.
Welcome back to reality. Oh, goodness. So pleased for you. As all religions, there are things that don't make sense at all. Rules that are ridiculous and don't affect anything. Exactly. The quicker y'all learn that any and every religion is there primarily to control you, especially women, the better off you'll be. Okay. But you know, one thing that I've been thinking about lately is that quote that says, only the strong survive, or the strongest survive, right? And I'm thinking to myself, this especially applies to women. You know what I mean? Like, only if you are a strong woman can you elevate above these things and actually survive. Otherwise, you stay on this playing field. This is the playing field that you will be on. Because your mind will not even be able to handle anything else, right? But what they're telling you that you are, and what they're telling you that you're worth, which is nothing, right? You've seen the light. Welcome back. Oh, goodness. That's so funny. Thanks for your sincerity. You spoke like a male. Now, what's your faith? Okay. Coming from this cultist, you can always tell they're cultists by their name, or they usually have it in their picture. You know, it's like, okay.
In Malaysia, 2 women were found guilty of attempting to have sex. They were caned publicly in what was the first punishment of its kind. The 2 women, aged 22 and 32, were caned 6 times each in the Terengganu Sharia High Court after the sentence was read out. This has led to a major outcry in Malaysia. The sentence was carried out in front of about 100 people at the Sharia High Court in Terengganu, which is a conservative state ruled by the Islamist opposition party and Malaysian Islamist party.
Now they are not allowing you to have a consensual sex. Who knows in future, like probably they will not allow you to, a same-sex partner to hold their hands in public.
Exactly. They believe in all these things that men created. Yep. Before anyone bashes the punishment, study the law of Islam first. Yep. Apparently it's not allowed to love whoever you want, but tell me why I'm not surprised. They say Islam is a religion of peace. It's nothing but hate and strict. It's a stupid punishment. Just because it's Quran doesn't mean it's right. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Akram Abdurrahman, and today I decided to explain why and how I left Islam. I left Islam when I was 19 years old in Saudi Arabia. I got my education there, like the elementary school, intermediate school, secondary school. The majority of my education was there. And at that time, the religion curriculum was very strict. So I was very educated about the religion and specifically about Islam. And since I was very educated about this religion, I was questioning some bad morals on Islam. Like, I was asking myself why Islam is the most racist religion ever. And why Islam is promoting hatred toward other religion. Also, I was asking myself why Islam is inciting people to commit some awful crimes like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, or whatever. At that time, ISIS didn't come. ISIS came later, right? Also, I was asking why Islam is treating women like as a second, maybe third and fourth class citizen, right? All this bad morals, and I can go on and on and on. But at that time, I wasn't really care about all these bad morals, but because I was thinking that these morals came from God and through the revelation Himself, so I was not care about about if it was good morals or bad morals, because it came from God already, right? But I believe that I start to leave Islam gradually when I start to ask myself the right question. When I start to ask myself the right question, like, for example, I believe the first important question for me was, is there a God or no God? Because it is logical to your brain that there is a God. But the problem is that the universe didn't care about what's logical to your brain, right? So this is how the delusion starts. So keep that in mind. The second important question is that if there is a God, let's suppose that there is a God, okay? How is going to communicate with us? Like, he's like really going to send a human to communicate with a human? Like, think about it. And finally, the third question, this is the funny question. Like, do you believe in that God will really, like, He will going to send someone at the middle of the desert, at the cave where no one can see, and He will send him a revelation? And if there is no one if no one believes in that revelation, He's going to touch your thing forever and ever? I mean, just think about it, right? So my message to all Muslims on planet Earth, trust me, guys, there is nothing special on this religion at all. It's made by a guy at the middle of the desert, and there's nothing special on this religion at all. Special, like, all the only special thing on this religion is the bad morals on it. And I believe that you need to be apostasy immediately. So stay away from Islam and see you later.
When he came out as an atheist, Saif al-Basri began to receive death threats.
I often get sent free tickets to hell. Often they say, you'll burn for eternity, God will punish you, Satan has led you astray. Or, if I saw you, I would kill you.
Muslims make up 5% of Germany's population. Before he moved here, Saif called himself a Muslim too. But while studying medicine, he began to experience doubts about his faith.
The Islamic world is dominated by a kind of culture of intimidation. Neither God nor the faith is ever questioned. There are strict guidelines that have to be accepted. They aren't questioned either. And that's not on. I'm calling for independent thinking.
Muslims who do send death threats to people like Saif base their actions on a message they attribute to the Prophet Muhammad.
In the Islamic tradition, in Sunni and also Shiite schools of thought, someone who's abandoned Islam has 3 days during which he's called to repent. If the person doesn't return to Islam, then they're to be threatened with death.
Their own friends and family are a major source of their fear. They're scared of being disowned. It took Saif 2 years to muster up the courage to tell his family that he had lost his faith.
To understand the validity of Islam or any other religion,
I set a criterion. Is there any evidence in favor of Allah? Is the morality depicted in Islam good? Is the science in Islam correct? I started asking questions around these three main ones. I will be dishonest if I said that I could do this all by myself. Books like The God Delusion helped me a lot to understand the other side of the argument. I wouldn't have time to discuss each and every question in detail, but I do intend to do so in the future. These three questions led me away from Islam. But what about other gods? Gods of Hinduism, Christian God, Jewish God, Roman gods, Greek gods, or 1,000 other gods that people have died worshipping. After all, they would all claim that their religion passes the all three questions that are raised above. I could not study every religion in as much detail as Islam, so I could question the character of God in general and dismiss all other mythological gods. Why is the creator of billions of galaxies so obsessed with what we tiny humans do in our private lives? He gets angry if we sleep with someone of our own gender. He gets angry if we not have some ceremony before we sleep with someone. If we do not worship him, he gets so angry that he will torture his own creation in hell for eternity. What is so special about worshipping? The creator of billions and billions of galaxies has an ego of a child. If I tell a child that he cannot have that chocolate, then he starts screaming and crying until he gets his own way. This is very similar to all the man-made gods. Worship me or I will burn you in hell forever. Why does this God, who wants us to believe in him so badly, shows no evidence of his existence? He can reveal himself right now in front of the White House and end all wars. He can show up today and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what my name is, and I want you to do this and this. End of story. But he wants to hide himself, and then he wants to blame his creation for not believing in him. Muslims and apologists of other faiths say, well, our God sent his message thousands of years ago. Which begs another question. Why did Abrahamic God send all the messages to this tiny part of the Middle East? What about people who did not get his message on the other side of the planet, say Australia or Americas? They did not know about Muhammad or any other Middle Eastern god until they were discovered in the 15th century and later. Just imagine all the millions of people who were born and died in that time in those continents. They are all going to burn in hell simply because they accidentally were born in a wrong geographical area. Muslims claim that their previous scriptures like Torah and Bible were contaminated by humans. Didn't the creator of everything know that if he sends Jesus and Moses, their message will be contaminated? If he knew, then what is the fault of all the Jews and Christians that were born after the Bible and Torah was contaminated? They lived and died believing in the Bible, but it was the incorrect one. Muslims love to say the Quran is not contaminated. I think it is worse than contamination. After all, every sect of Islam has their own interpretation. Sunnis say they are right, while Shias are the correct ones. This means the Quran is either easy to be misunderstood or it is simply not a good writing. There are verses in Quran that are easily misunderstood. To this day, Muslims loosely quote verses like this as the evidence of the Big Bang. Do those who are disbelievers not see that heavens and earth were sewn together, and then we unstitched them, and that we made from water every living thing? So will they not have faith? Surah Anbiya. I will not go into detail as to how unscientific this verse is, as I will dedicate a whole video on that. But this begs a philosophical question. If these verses were scientifically correct, then how come no Muslim ever came up with these theories? Again, it means either it is not written properly, so it's easily misunderstood, or there is no Big Bang mentioned in the verse. I stick with the latter. And the prayer. Every religious person thinks he or she has a special hotline to their God. When they get something, they think it's because of the prayer. If they don't get it, then they think that maybe Allah didn't want it. 1.5 billion Muslims pray to Allah every day. But what about other 5.5 billion people? They are obviously praying to the wrong God. How can they live their lives perfectly well? They also think that sometimes their prayers get answered and sometimes not. Clearly there's something wrong here. Let's do an experiment. If you want something, don't do anything. Just pray to Allah and see if you get that or not. On the other hand, if you want the same thing, don't pray to Allah and just work hard to get it. See if it works. Obviously, it works for 5.5 billion other people on earth. Muslims will say, well, you still have to work hard, but you have to pray as well.
If you have to work hard to get something, then what is the point of praying? Lastly, people ask me, why don't you keep your atheistic views to yourself? The answer is very simple. I live a free life, free of any hell fear or any other baggage that comes with religion. I enjoy my life, and it's great to be alive. I can drink alcohol. I don't have to hate homosexuals. I don't have to think that women are subservient to men. I don't have to believe that women are inferior to men. I don't have to hate certain animals. I can enjoy music. I don't have to hate people of other religions. I can enjoy the paintings and other works of art. All this baggage goes away if you become an atheist, and the world starts becoming a better place without this baggage. So people like me like to spread the message and these counter-arguments. By the way, why do Muslims think that they can preach their belief to others, but others can't? If your answer is that, well, we are right, then I'm sorry to say, you are wrong.
Most people in Imtiaz's network are deep in hiding. I'm meeting Naz, a teenager who says she's in fear of her life. Her family are from Iraq, but moved to Britain a few years ago.
I think it started to click for them that I wasn't believing anymore when I was about 18 and I just stopped praying, I stopped participating in Ramadan. I wasn't really going to the mosque with my mother anymore.
Naz says her father tricked her to go on a family trip to Iraq and then imprisoned her.
He took me to one of the bedrooms in the back of the house. It would always start with, you put shame upon us. You can actually see his anger build up until the moment where he will explode. Imagine some guy 6 foot tall just beating down on you. But imagine that times 10 for half an hour.
So he'd beat you for half an hour?
Yeah. He probably would have gone as far as killing me.
After a month of abuse, she managed to escape and found safety at a Western embassy. She was repatriated to Britain, and the ex-Muslim network has been helping her recover.
Almost everyone I know from this support group has gone through emotional abuse. And it's really, really big in this community and in this religion if you're not a believer and you have to pretend to believe. The parents just don't know about that, and if they would knew, they would either disown them or do horrible things to them.
Here are 3 reasons why I left the tyrannical belief system known as Islam, supposedly the religion of peace. So, reason number 1, intolerance. To put it to you simply, in the Quran, the book, the holy book of the Muslims, like the equivalent of the Bible, if you are not a Muslim, if you're a non-believer, a kafir, you're supposed to go straight to hell. And there are countless of verses, they just say it outright. If you're a non-believer, you go to hell. All right? Number 2, outdated. So, give you an example here. If you have sex outside of marriage or you commit adultery, you're supposed to be stoned to death. You're supposed to be stoned to death by a group of people. They throw stones at you until you die. Right. We don't have time to talk about other absurd things. Number 3, violent. There is an inherent violent nature to this tyrannical belief system, and it's all over the Quran, jihad, we don't have time.
And assumed that the Crusades were a big, massive evil, a crime against humankind, a series of pretty dark and brutal whatever. Even if that was the case, discrediting Christianity for that would be like discrediting Islam for ISIS. No, wait, that's actually wrong, because you wouldn't be able to trace the Crusades back to the fundamentals of Christianity, but you could find most of the disgusting stuff that ISIS does in the fundamental scripture of Islam. Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Jainism, and all the other religions don't order to spread the religion by the sword and subjugate everyone forcibly under religious supremacy. Islam does. Christianity and Judaism say love thy neighbor as thyself. Islam tells you not to initially greet your neighbor if he's not a Muslim. Hinduism and the other religions don't even have sets of rules as to what to do with the spread of your religion. They tell you to preserve your community and to resort to violence only in self-defense. Some even abhor that kind of violence.
So just to be sure here, y'all. So Christianity actually spreads the same message. There's a ton of contradictions in the Bible, so even the most basic saying of turn the other cheek, and then you have other verses in the same Bible promoting the abuse of women, the idea that women are less than, the idea that women are, nothing but WHORES. I think that's how you spell it. Who knows? But, insulting them with words that I won't repeat on YouTube. So I think, maybe this person is just a lot more familiar with the Islam religion because they used to be Islamic. and decided no longer to be. And so that's where this perspective is coming from. But honestly, the things that he's comparing Christianity versus Islam, they're both the same, y'all. They both do the exact same thing. And we can't be surprised because created by males, by delusional males, for delusional males. That's literally what it comes down to.
While Islam tells you that you will certainly go to hell if you flee from the battlefield, Christianity says, who lives by the sword will die by the sword. While Islam gives the highest rank in heaven, because you have ranks in heaven, to the one who fights and dies for Allah. Islam punishes apostates with death, and that is a very clear, uncontroversial ruling in Islam. It has been so for 1,400 years. Only today, under Western influence, have some Muslims started to abandon and oppose this. Christianity has no such penalty, although the Romans instated a penalty for apostasy at some point, something unchristian. Judaism had initially a death penalty for people who abandoned Judaism and tried to turn other Jews away as well. This rule was abandoned 2,000 years ago, when Rabbinic Judaism started to become the norm of Judaism, as it still is. 600 years before Islam introduced this ruling. Tell that to those Muslim apologists who say, Judaism has that rule too. Some Muslim apologists try to tell us that Hinduism has such a ruling, but it's very obvious why they want to say that, and it's very obvious that they have no idea how Hinduism works. I don't even want to go into that, it's ridiculous. In Islam, you can be punished with death for blasphemy, apostasy, homosexuality, adultery, mischief and corruption, which is very vague, insulting Muhammad and other things. In Judaism, there were a series of similar punishable things in the Bible, but the Mishnah, which is the first religious collection of Rabbinic Judaism, calls a court that issues a death sentence a murderer. And death penalties were abandoned 2,000 years ago, 600 years before Islam even came into existence again. Christianity has no death penalty at all.
So we constantly see these things changing, right? Like the Bible, they change it as often as they want to. And other religions do the same thing with whatever book they follow. They just change it willy-nilly. Who cares? But this is what they want you to live your life based off of without question. If you have to continue to change it so many times, then how can it be that this is the ultimate truth? It cannot be. It doesn't even make sense. It's not possible because you keep having to change it and update it. So the people that were following what was previously said before, what happens to them? The whole concept of religion doesn't make sense. The whole concept was, in my opinion, brought about by males wanting to control, subjugate, and assuage women, nature, animals, children. They want to assuage and destroy everything.
There is no mention, and early churches condemned the death penalty until the Romans messed it up at some point and instated unchristian death penalties. No other religion is a state system of religious supremacy except Islam. No other religion has a set system on how to rule every aspect of the state, the military, and crime except Islam. No other religion gives you an ancient human as an example and tells you to imitate every aspect of his life except Islam, which gives you a man who became...
So he's talking about the separation of church and state, basically. Which there used to be no separation when it comes to Christianity as well. When it comes to, Catholicism, Christianity, there used to be no separation. They changed it. So all you have to do is sit down and think to yourself, well, if something that they always say is the ultimate truth has to be changed continuously all the time, every time someone points out, well, that's weird, this doesn't make sense, or this doesn't make sense, they have to go back and change it. So if it can be so freely and easily changed, right, then how can it be that how can it be that it's the foundation of all truth? It cannot be. And who's doing the changing? Oh, that's right. Humans, males. So then we start to think, okay, well then wouldn't that mean that males are the ones that did the initial writing in the first place? And if you can freely, willy-nilly just put whatever it is that you want in there and change it whenever you see fit, which there's so much still in there in these books across all religions that they refuse to change because it subjugates women and children, then what sense does that make me living my life based off of something that clearly human beings created, and to make matters worse, males created? So it only takes a certain amount of questions, y'all.
had a dozen wives, one of them 6 years old, had slaves including sex slaves, and insulted virtually every other group in this world. Moreover, let's forget about the past and fundamentals for a minute. No other religion causes so many problems in the world as Islam does today. No other religion keeps their cultures back so much. A dozen countries still punish apostasy with death, all Islamic. They punish blasphemy, thoughts, with death. Homosexuality is punished with death. Adultery is punishable with death or other punishments. Islam is by far the world leader in science. Oh, it's terrorism. Women are still treated like garbage in the Islamic world and in Islamic cultures outside the Islamic world. Not wearing the hijab is a legal issue, or mostly a very severe social issue. No other religion is so much concerned and involved in people's private lives and bedrooms as Islam is. And finally,
I agree with this because to tell women that you have to cover up your hair, it's like, what are we doing here? So to me, in my opinion, I think, wow, that's wild. I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. It's like you literally, as a woman, you cannot even have your hair out. Who do you think made that rule? Because that definitely didn't come from another woman. That rule definitely did not come from another woman. It was not a woman that sat there and wrote that into their book. So it just begs a lot of questions. And the more questions you ask, the more you are able to, potentially set yourself free from all of these manipulative cultic groups, right?
this is very important to the topic of this video. No other religion mentions other religions and religious groups by their names and insults them, threatens them, makes ever-living hostile prophecies about them. In no other religion will you grow up hating specific religious groups, like Jews, and will be shown directly a piece of fundamental religious scripture that supports the idea of hating them. No other religion is this hostile against everyone else. No other religion calls others by their names, the worst of creation. Please, fact check everything I said, everything I told you, but stop making excuses. Stop telling me that all religions were equally bad, that I should criticize all of them if I criticize one of them. I am an ex-Muslim, a former Muslim who strictly practiced and diligently
So I all religions are just terrible. It's just, it's almost like they all believe the same thing. They just change the names and they change certain parts of the story to make it seem like it's a different cult or a different group, but it's not. It's like the same thing. You just edited certain parts of it, which is wild. But those are the vibes that I'm getting here. All right. Well, thank y'all for joining today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.